Hello out there, the Kentucky Patriot here again. Just want to talk to you a few minutes. A lot of questions. We hear a lot of talk about concealed carry. Do we carry one in the chamber or do we not carry one in the chamber? And there's a strong debate on both sides. Which one is right? Which one is correct? Well, I know what I do. I know how I carry. But I don't think that we can only have one answer for every scenario. Everybody's different. Your scenario may be different. For instance, the horrible situation that happened at Walmart where a young mother had a young child. She had her concealed carry permit and she had her weapon in her purse, and the child was able to get to the weapon, and she's probably shopping, had her head turned a minute, and when he got to the weapon there was one in the chamber. He fired and accidentally killed his mother. Had there not been one in the chamber, the situation could have been different. Other times I've heard folks say, if you don't have one in the chamber, you know, it's not as easy. And I've got a buddy who's a law enforcement officer, and I've heard him say he would not carry one if he didn't have one in the chamber. You know, carrying an empty chamber is ridiculous to him. But to me, if you have young kids, especially if you're a female, I know they make purses just for that. They make purses to hide your have a little compartment there to put your firearm in, and you need to be able to get to it, but you also got to realize your children may be able to get to it. So if your children could be able to get to it, then I certainly wouldn't recommend carrying one in the chamber. And you know, my good friend that said, you know, if something happens that I'm attacked from behind or whatever, and they hit my this arm, and you carry one out of the chamber, you won't be able to put one into the chamber. But really, if you can draw it, you can put one in the chamber just that quick. And see, I'm in the fight. You don't have to rack it off your leg. You can rack it off your belt. If I'm down on one knee, I can rack it off the back of my shoe. But if you do carry one in the chamber, you feel more more confident carrying one in the chamber, I'm not against that either. But I tell you what you need to be careful of is make sure that if you're carrying one in the chamber especially, that your holster covers the trigger completely. That way, if you've got one in the chamber or something, don't accidentally hit it, you don't bump into something and cause a negligent discharge, because that can be very, very dangerous. So remember, if you have a concealed carry permit and you're carrying, whether you carry one in the chamber or whether you carry one out of the chamber, practice either way. Know how you carry it, and I would only carry one way. If I was going to carry one in the chamber, that's how I'd train and practice, is one in the chamber at all times. If I was going to carry one out of the chamber, I'd train and practice that way, and that way I wouldn't get confused, wouldn't be in a confrontation or my life on the line and me think, did I have one in the chamber or not have one in the chamber? You need to know at all times. I don't understand these, really, to be honest with you, these press checks to see if there's one in the chamber or not. You ought to be responsible to know your concealed weapon. Is there one in the chamber or not? And ever how you carry it, make sure it's safe, most of all, especially if you have children. Especially if they can get to it. And there's a lot of times people say, well, I don't think they can get to it, but children can get a lot of times where you can't. So, if there's kids around, maybe you shouldn't carry one in the chamber. But you need to sit down with your loved ones and discuss how you're going to do it. And you need to be able to obviously access your firearm and be able to defend yourself, but also keep yourself safe. And those that may be able to get to your firearm. And again, if you're carrying one in the chamber, make sure the holster, or how you're inside the waistband, outside the waist, whatever, make sure that trigger is covered at all times by the holster. And then if you're not carrying one, you got to be able to realize that when you draw, when you come out, you may have to, rack the slide and put a round in the chamber, and you need to practice that. It's got to be quick, it's got to be fast, because most of the time when you're attacked, it happens within seconds, and you need to be able to actively and very quickly chamber around and then to be able to defend yourself. So just a couple of thoughts, and again, I'm not for or against one in the chamber. I think both can be highly effective, but that's something you need to discuss, you need to talk to your loved ones about, and you need to be prepared and have your firearm accessible and ready, and be safe. If you're not an NRA member, I urge you to join the NRA. They're great people. They protect our Second Amendment rights. They're on the firing lines every day, because the only thing I tell you, like Wayne LaPierre says, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Don't ever want to hurt anybody. God forbid we'd ever have to. But as we said in our last video, our families come first, and there's a lot of bad people out there that do bad things, and we need to keep our family and our friends safe and our kids safe. And sometimes as I just said, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, and you may be the very one that saves a loved one, somebody else's loved one. So we need to be prepared at all times. May God bless you. The Kentucky Patriot, signing off.